Another thing that a lot of people maybe they think or don't think about is sincerely from both sides, just a fresh start. Because you know that there's when someone drafts you and they sign you and stuff, they sign you because they think that you're going to be a good player, whether you're a player or a goalie, whatever, right? And the coach or the GM sees that it's there, but it's just not there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it just isn't
Like
showing up.
I know that this kid can score 25 goals. I know that he can, and it's like I see that he's close, and it's like there's just a little bit missing here and there, and you can see the frustration and stuff, and you're pushing for him, and you really want him to do well, but you can just see it's like not going the way that the kid needs it.
That's just not happening.
And eventually they both come to an agreement. Like the general manager come to the kid and say, "Listen, maybe he's hard on him, maybe he's not, whatever." But at the end of the day, they come to an agreement that listen, I can move you, or the kid says, I just think I need a fresh start, and maybe the GM says, I agree with you, and you get an equivalent asset for that player. And a lot of times you see someone have the career that they were supposed to have because it maybe just wasn't the right environment for them, or as they're in that environment, they're putting pressure on themselves to produce, and whatever the external things going on or internal things going on with your head games that you might play with yourself. Maybe there's just this environment here in Windsor, Ontario is just not working for me, and then you go somewhere else and it's all of a sudden bang, good. Maybe you get off to a good game. Maybe it's this the thing that you needed, and sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's just you're not a good enough player. But a lot of times that is a thing that it's just a fresh start. You can reset the whole thing if your head's screwed on right. You can reset your whole mindset and just look as you said, manifest earlier today, manifest what it's going to be like, and you could change in a heartbeat and have a really nice career. So like that's what I'm saying is like trades aren't necessarily negative, right?
No, the thing that came to mind was when remember when Kessel was in Toronto?
Yeah.
And then he gets shipped to Pittsburgh. After that, was it Pittsburgh right after that? I think so. Toronto to Pittsburgh. I think that was what happened
He
to
went
Kessel.
Pittsburgh, Toronto, was it? No, Toronto,
No,
Pittsburgh.
Toronto,
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
you're right.
But it was
Nah?
like, yeah, it was Toronto
Was it?
Pittsburgh. Yeah, yeah. So, for
Yeah, you're
him,
right.
because before that he was on Boston.
Yeah,
right?
you're right. Yeah, there you go.
But
One nut.
yeah, but so he's in Toronto. That's a good example of like you can see that he's got maybe some capability to be the franchise guy, and it just wasn't happening. They couldn't make the team around him. It just wasn't working for whatever reason. And then he goes to Pittsburgh where he's not necessarily the franchise guy, but he's still obviously a huge piece of Pittsburgh. And then he has a couple of great years and wins Stanley Cup. You know what I mean? So it's like could just be a need a change of scenery, whatever. Especially in like some of the Canadian market teams, you got all the media shit and whatever. And if you go to a team in the States, like they don't really care as much about hockey over there. So
yeah. Well, and
it can be a
some
lot
some
calmer.
guys like that's a good example. Taylor Hall might be another one.
Yep.
Is
Yeah, there you go.
some guys are superstars, but they're not the guy that you want to hang your hat on or you put all the pressure on. Sometimes the superstar needs to be a second line, third line fiddle, and then he'll just excel
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
for sure.
And I
For
feel
sure.
like most first round picks and arguably most first overall picks even end up being something like they need support. Like cuz there's very few of them that are like Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon that are just like they can carry the squad kind of thing. But even McKinnon arguably like he's got good support on that team, right? It wasn't
Well,
like
and it took him a couple of years.
Yeah.
He was an incredible player,
yeah,
but yeah.
most of them aren't going to. A lot of times people will think specifically about the first overall, like they're going to be the guy that turns the team around solo, like you can just hang your hat on. And there's not a lot, even first overall guys, where it's like that. You know, like you go as far back as like Nugent Hopkins, Tavares, like all these guys that were like top notch. Tavares is another good example of that. Like was one of the best or one of the top junior hockey players maybe ever in the OHL.
Well, I think where people have to really understand it, and I don't know if people actually can, like until you play. Like I've used this before. Like you could be a superstar. You mentioned does Connor Bedard's game translate, and then like I'm sure it does. Like I'm sure it does, but not today. Like and even you look at McDavid, he was like a star coming in, but he wasn't. He doesn't understand that game as an 18-year-old as like he does now, because if you think about it, like you're a really good your first overall centerman drafted in the NHL, and then you're lined up against Patrice Bergeron. Well, that face off, the chance of you winning that face off is very, very slim. I'm not saying that you're not going to, but it's very, very slim because he's taken thousand. I can't. How many face offs? And he understands the pressure and where to put it. And he can read you like a book because he's done this thousands and thousands of times. So that first overall pick or that young guy has to learn how to get to that. It's the experience that'll get you right. It's coming in on what you did in junior or even the first couple of years of pro. If you're entering a zone offensively, and let's say you take whatever angle, that defenseman, that veteran defenseman, has seen this, and he might have 10 years on you, and he's just that much bigger, stronger. But even more importantly, he's done this, and he was a first round pick, most likely if he's in the NHL himself, with 10 years experience, and he's had this zone entry hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times with guys better than you. So that this is not a shocker to him, right? So it's that experience that makes a big difference to come in. So yeah, the pressure thing is you have to learn and earn, right?
Yeah. So if you like bring it back to the trade thing, that's what a lot of times, to your point about the fresh start. It's like sometimes you get these guys that maybe there was more expectation than they were capable of delivering, or there was more expectation than they were capable of delivering in that situation. And like Tavares is another good example with New York, like just couldn't get him over the top. So after whatever he was there for 5-6 years, maybe I was like, okay, like this ain't working. We'll try to start over, because you have that one guy. If he's supposed to be your guy, you can't bring in another guy until that guy's gone. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, whether it's OHL, CHL, or the NHL, you can see that a lot where it's just we gotta shake things up,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.